So when I started working in corporate, I had a salary figure in mind, only because I'd heard someone else mention it when I was still in college. And I was like, that sounds pretty good. I don't even know if that's something I can get. Because back then, I was so limited by what I thought was possible. Because I hadn't seen...
I'm going to dig into TikTok a little bit and your strategy on social media and building your personal brand. And it's amazing and very inspiring that you were able to pivot during the pandemic, totally change your client acquisition strategy, basically, and attract all these Fortune 500 companies to work with you. But I do want to dig into how you became an entrepreneur, because so many people who listen to my podcast right now are young, they're in corporate jobs, they have side hustles, they want to become an entrepreneur. So my question to you is, was entrepreneurship natural for you? Or was that a hard thing for you to adapt to, like being in corporate for 10 years? Was it hard for you to actually, work for yourself and let go of the safety net of a corporate job?
Yeah, this is such a great question and something I often think about, because I call them, like that analogy, how if you see there's, baby elephant and they'll chain it up when it's a baby. And then it learns that it cannot go beyond a certain distance. And then when that baby elephant is an adult, it doesn't have chains anymore. It just has a little piece of rope tied around its leg, and it's not even attached to anything. But that elephant has become so ingrained with that belief that it cannot move that it doesn't try. Same principle with corporate. I was very good at fitting a mold, being what everyone wanted me to be, being the yes person, doing what I was told. And I did it really well, and I excelled in my career because of it. But of course, in doing that, I then took that with me, this need for validation, this need to always feel like I'm working. I haven't been able to shake it. So it's funny that, it's been however many years since I've left. I still take that with me. So that transition was really quite difficult. And that's why it took me a full 3 years to really prepare myself and get ready for the transition out. So my transition, if I take those 3 years and just give you a couple of key insights as to what I was doing to get me ready. Firstly, I was really clear on the fact that I knew my vision was not to stay where I was. I was really clear that I had a vision for financial freedom. I had a vision for, living life on my own terms, running a business that really lit me up inside and was genuinely helping people. So I kept that front of mind, because the moment that dies down, you just get stuck in the doing. And then 10 years pass, 20 years pass, you're still stuck in your corporate environment or your full-time job. So really clear on that. I also started implementing pieces that would get me closer to where I needed to go. So I was offering my speaking for free, which did two things. One, it gave me a lot of good practice, because I'll tell you now, I had no idea what I was doing when I started, but it forced me to get in front of stages, to clarify a message and to become comfortable with that. And the second thing is it gave me great exposure to companies who later became clients. I was also recording everything I was doing, so I was getting snippets and putting them online. And then I was also accepting some coaching clients. So for me, an easy transition out was to run a bit of a coaching business on the side. That was my side hustle. So I had been doing that for about 3 years. When it came to making the decision, I'll be completely honest, my husband, so I needed another person to give me the push and say, that's it, we're doing this. No more focusing on the risk. So I think for many people, if you don't have someone in your life who backs you and believes you, try and find one. It doesn't have to be a business partner, but just someone, a mentor, someone who has done it before, who you can look at. It's the role modeling, or the motivational theory of role modeling. When you find someone who has done what you've done, and my husband has been an entrepreneur most of his life. He's run amazing businesses, scaled businesses, run a company similar to what we're doing now in South Korea. His journey's been amazing himself. Because he'd done it, I could see it. And then I was more ready to take that leap. I think back and, I wonder if he wasn't in my life, it probably would have taken me another few years to really feel ready. Because at the time, I didn't have a role model who had transitioned out. So the fact that a lot of your listeners have you and have the guests that you're speaking with, that in itself is that role modeling of, I've seen people who have done it. What is their journey? And it reminds them, hey, I can do it too.
Yeah. This sounds like it reminds me of my own journey. I started my company as a side hustle during the pandemic. And my role model was my first client, Heather Monahan. And she was so adamant. She was like, you need to quit your job. You're going to have a
Yeah.
multi-million-dollar business. Like, you're crazy for staying in corporate. And she would push me and push me and push me. And then finally I quit my job. So you're so right. Having somebody in your corner and somebody who's been where you want to be, like she's an entrepreneur, she's a speaker, she's an author. She's really like somebody who I aspire to be like in 10 years. She saw it before I could see it. Right. So I'm sure your husband also saw the same in you. So did you have any benchmarks? I remember it took me 6 months to leave corporate. I was already making 6 figures a month and had 30 employees, and I still didn't leave my job. Did you have any benchmarks? Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it took me a long time to quit my job because I had a great job at Disney and I didn't want to let it go.
What was the turning point for you? I'm curious. So what was that moment where you said, okay, this is
I got
it.
on the
can't
cover of
sustain
Podcast Magazine.
There you
and
go.
I was just like, all right, I'm like obviously a top podcaster and this is not a fluke. And so I quit my job and,
Wow.
yeah. How about you? Tell me about what benchmark. Did you have like a certain number that you wanted to hit or a goal that you wanted to achieve before you were like, okay, I'm done with my corporate job. I'm going to pivot now into this entrepreneurship space?
Interesting. I did. So when I started working in corporate, I had a salary figure in mind only because I'd heard someone else mention it when I was still in college. And I was like, that sounds pretty good. I don't even know if that's something I can get, because back then I was so limited by what I thought was possible because I hadn't seen anything outside of that. And what I mean by that is when I think about my family and the role models that I had, my dad was always the one who would get up and go to work. My mother, she sacrificed her professional career to raise the kids. And she has a business, a very small business that does well. She runs it from home. So for me, I didn't have a vision as to, a career for myself. I just went to university or went to college because that's what you did. And then I thought, well, you get your first job, that's what you do. The rest of it came along the way, it came on the journey. But initially I had a salary figure in mind. And which was great. I think it's important to have something to work towards so long as it is achievable yet a stretch. It can't be something that you'll never get to because that's actually demotivating. And then I got there, and like anyone else who is goal motivated or goal oriented, you get there and you're like, okay, well, maybe I can push it out just a little bit further. You think, okay, well, which other mountain can I go and scale now? So there's this constant need to do something else. So that's kind of what happened. I hit my salary expectation, what I didn't think was possible at the time. And it wasn't as hard to get as I thought. And then I thought, okay, well, let me try this one. And then I kept setting these new goals. So again, that's why for me, it was so important to have Faisal to say, okay, you can do this. Why are you wasting your time here? Move along. And for you, it was having Heather. And I think you said it so beautifully. They believe in you even when you don't. They can see a path for you even where you can't. They've been there before. I actually shared something on LinkedIn recently about how when we look at mentors and career development, there are different types of mentors you can have. And one of them is the champion. And the champion is someone who sees the path that you can follow and then advocates for you to get on that path. And then there's others, the supporter and the challenger. But having someone who has been there and then gives you that nudge is amazing. Not everyone has the luxury of having that. And that's why you can also find that through people on social media that you follow or listening to podcasts like this. You can do it vicariously through others, but it's beautiful that you had that story yourself.